Welcome to How to Live Slow, the podcast where we discuss slow living for the modern woman and help you design an intentionally slower family life. I'm Rachelle Glendon, your personal slow living coach and host of this podcast. I know all about busy, but I love living slow. Enjoy the show. Well, hello and welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day so far. Today, I want to talk about weight loss. It's that time of year when everybody's starting to think about, or probably even already given up on, New Year's resolutions like eating better, losing weight, exercising more, all of those things. And I wanted to talk about that because this episode is part of a series I'm doing this January. There's 5 episodes looking at alternative lifestyle options and approaches that we might consider that are different than New Year's resolutions. These are like long-term changes, lifestyle choices. And today's episode is talking about getting out of the dieting culture and the dieting treadmill. And to do that, I have the beautiful Suzanne on the show today. Now, Suzanne is the author of a book called The Beginning is Shit, an unapologetic weight loss memoir. Now, her story is just absolutely incredible. So she's an author, as I said. She's also a weight loss coach and weight loss sage who transforms bodies and minds. She helps clients deal with negative patterns of behavior, shed kilos, build confidence, and create lasting change. She has 2 kids and she lives in Sydney, but like I said, her story is pretty incredible. And she kind of outlines for us, the episode is called Healing Your Overgiving Habit. So there's nothing in there about dieting. So because Suzanne's approach is all about how overeating is so deeply linked to overgiving for us, particularly for us as women, but especially for mothers. And if you identify as a people pleaser or anything like that, this is definitely the episode for you. Even if you're not on a weight loss journey, this cycle pattern of behavior is something that, food is just one way that it kind of manifests. So definitely excited for you to hear this episode. Suzanne is just such an amazing woman. She's so vivacious and enthusiastic about everything that she shares. So I know you're going to enjoy the conversation anyway. So enjoy the episode, and as always, if you do love the episode, please hop over onto Instagram and let me know. I love getting feedback from you. I really appreciate knowing whether or not you're enjoying the episodes and having a chat. So other than that, enjoy the episode and I'll see you next week. All right, I'm here with Suzanne today. How are you going?
I am fantastic, thank you. How are you?
Yes, really good. I'm really excited to talk today, as always. We've got a really wonderful conversation ahead for our guests. So why don't you start with sharing a little bit about you and where you're at today with work and your weight loss journey and all of that.
Yeah, certainly. So where I am currently is in Sydney, and I laugh a bit. We have moved around quite a bit. So we've lived in Queensland, in Tassie, Hunter Valley. So now we're in the city. And I have released, I don't say lost, because I believe subconsciously anything that we lose, we try and find again. So I have released 78 kilograms. So yes, an entire person.
Wow.
Right. And that has led to my business. I call myself the accidental entrepreneur because I documented my own weight release journey, and then people asked if they could work with me. So then I trained as a coach, which has been really flexible because I'm also a mum. I have 2 children. They're 6 and 8. They're both at school today as we're recording this. Super excited because we've been in lockdown for a few months.
Yeah.
And I run my business completely online, and to allow for us to move around and the flexibility around my children. And I help people with the mindset of weight release. So not what to eat and how much to move and all that sort of stuff, because I believe everybody knows what to do. They just don't do it consistently. So it's uncovering what are the blocks to us taking consistent action so we can have lasting results.
Amazing. Yeah, so such an incredible journey you've been on, and how cool to have figured out a way to help other people do it. So let's talk about the blocks. What are the blocks?
So mostly what tends to happen, I call it the overgiving cycle, is, phase 1 is, actually phase 1's technically you get tagged in a fat photo, or your fat pants don't fit, or you just get so sick of yourself that you're like, this is going to be the time, I'm going to do the thing. And so that's pre-phase 1. And then phase 1 is we make the plans, whether it be we join a diet, like something, a program, or we just fill the fridge with fresh veggies. and we join the gym, or we make a plan of when we're going to exercise, and we get really, really organized. And we're like, this is going to be the time. And I say that not from a place of judgment. I've written an entire book about my 30 years of doing this. And then something happens and we overgive. So we ditch our plan to take care of others. Somebody says, could you just make this for the bake sale? Could you just pick up my kids because I've got X on? Could you just get my script? And so on and so forth. So in that moment, we're like, sure, because I don't want to say no. So we overgive to everybody else, and we reach a point where we burn out and we feel resentful, whether we're aware of that consciously or not. And then the way we deal with that feeling of resentment is overeating. And for those of us with young children, it's usually in the evening. Put the kids to bed. It's my time. Go to the fridge, go to the pantry, eat all the stuff you said no to them earlier in the day. And then we feel guilty because, we've failed again. The vegetables are wilting in the fridge, and we're eating cheap and cheerful because it makes everybody happy, and we just can't deal with everyone's emotions. And we've skipped the gym. So we're like, oh, I'm spending this money, I'm not actually going. And then from this place of guilt, we tend to make plans. So it becomes a cycle. Make plans, overgive, burn out, overeat, feel guilty, make plans. And what most of us do is we're like, okay, we've got some awareness that this isn't working. So we try and find the right plan, whether it be the right diet. So many of us have tried keto, paleo, Weight Watchers, Jenny Craig, Dukin, body trim, 12WBT. It's like, I just haven't found the right plan yet. When I find the right plan, everything will be solved. Or we've tried so many different workout plans. We might have a treadmill, otherwise known as a clothes horse, an expensive clothes horse. All the doodads, the ab wave, the people on TV, and it's like, it's really uncomfortable and it hurts, I don't want to use it. Or the dumbbells that are used as like door stops, like expensive door stops. So we have all these gadgets, all the apps. We've downloaded Chris Hemsworth or whoever it is, and all these apps of people who look really hot, and we just kind of look at them and go, oh, I don't look anything like that we never use. And we even turn off the notifications because the dings and bells and whistles just make us feel better about ourselves. So what really came to light to me is the point that we of intervention isn't the plans, it's the overgiving piece. It's learning to say no without feeling like a bitch, because when we say no to others, we're actually saying yes to ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the hard part. And you're right. That's where the work comes in, for sure. So what did you do, and what do you advise your clients? How do you work on that? What's your advice around?
Well, the first thing is awareness. And awareness is often the hardest, but we can't change what we don't acknowledge. So it's kind of realizing, yes, where are all the places that I'm saying yes to everybody else and saying no to me? And a lot of people, they do fear that, if I start saying no, that people aren't going to like me anymore, like the people pleaser, the martyr. I know you talk about the martyr in your work.
Yeah.
Comes out, but it doesn't have to be a 180. It doesn't have to be like, right. It's just kind of being aware of that. And the other thing that I work on with a lot of people, and I know I worked on with myself, is we feel the mum guilt. So for example, when I started this iteration of my weight release, when it actually worked, my children were 1 and 3. So they were really young, and my husband worked drive in, drive out. So it was just me, my family lived interstate, and I wanted to go to the gym, but I felt so guilty putting them in the creche because I felt really, really guilty about it. I remember the first day I went and I took them in and I dropped them there, and their little faces, they press up against the glass with their tears in their eyes. And I'm like, I can't do this. I feel really guilty. I'm like, no, just go do this, And it wasn't long. It was a couple of gym sessions, and they were loving it. They loved the creche, the toys, the other kids, And what's interesting is the modeling, our children learn by modeling. So it's not long, and we've just come out of lockdown now, and my kids are like, we can't wait till the gym opens, Mum. You need to go back to the gym. So they see now that when I look after myself, I feel better, I'm less snappy, I'm being able to be more present with them. So part of the guilt for me and a lot of my clients is we feel like we should be with our children all the time, but there's quality time and there's quantity. So you can be with your kids 24/7, but not really with them because your head's in your phone. No judgment, I've done that too. Or you're not really wanting to be there, and people can sense that. Whereas when you take the time for you and then you do spend the time with your children, there's so much more connection there because you're enjoying, I found I'm enjoying it and my clients enjoy it a lot more. And it also, for my children, helps them be more independent too, because they see, like, I know growing up for me personally, my mum never had any friends. She never had any hobbies. She was an awesome mum. I'm not knocking her, but I thought, wow, once you become a mum, that's it. You don't do anything else. So it was never modeled to me having my own thing. So when I first became a mum, I did that too. I let a lot of friendships go. I stayed home all the time. And then I realized I lost me somewhere along the way. So finding me again, giving my children permission to see, yes, I am their mum, that's a role, but I'm also a businesswoman and, a chef and a taxi, all sorts of things. But I have my own interests as well.
Yeah, that's so true. I think, and it's interesting that you reflect that that's how your mum was and that's how you started off your motherhood journey, but you've got to really look at that. And often we can look at what our parents did and say, I'm going to do the exact, like if it didn't work well, I'm going to do the exact opposite. And that's not always healthy either. But also we do get that conditioning of like what a good mum does. And if you've got that, a good mum is always available. A good mum doesn't have needs. That's kind of like the thing where we think of super women or super mum. And if you're constantly comparing yourself to that unachievable standard, then obviously that guilt's going to come up when you have a desire to do something for yourself and you're going to feel like it's not good for your kids to be able to do that. That's interesting to see, like, how they shifted, and it does take that little bit of a rip off the Band-Aid and go for it, doesn't it? And they get used to it.
If you're a little bit hesitant, you don't have to go for a full hour. Like I wasn't even fit enough to do a full hour at the beginning. So even just, 10 or 15 minutes of them getting used to the creation, the people who run it and the toys, and me, like, reclaiming my fitness so I don't cough up a lung every time I go into the gym. It's a good balance. And the other thing too, in terms of like looking after ourselves, the cliche saying is, fit your own oxygen mask before helping others. But like in our family, we are often very iron deficient. And we've had all the tests and they haven't found a cause. But my children both needed iron supplementation, and getting them to take it, especially at 1 and 3, was like, it was not pleasant. But when I started like taking my own, iron supplements and looking after myself, that they saw that, and then they're there with their hands out going like, where's mine? So it was really interesting. Like when you tell someone, you should do this, and they kind of feel like, ugh. But when you, for lack of a better way of putting it, lead by example, then they want to do that too. So like we've just started bike riding as a family, which has been funny because when I was 18, I had quite a bad crash on a bike and I haven't got on a bike since. And my daughter's been wanting to learn to ride, but she's having a bit of a struggle. And I said, well, when you can do it without the training wheels, then I'll buy a bike and relearn. So, now that's something we can do, together as a family. That's also, incidental fitness. Like I've never been one to tell my kids exercise, like go run around the oval or something, but encouraging stuff that's, exercise, fun, but not like you should go play or something.
Yeah, like active lifestyle together.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really lovely that you're able to do that. How cool. I mean, I know exactly what you're saying. I never was confident on a bike. So I have to really push myself for the kids to see me so that they do it, because you're right. What you do and how you treat yourself becomes how your kids treat themselves. So let's go and talk about that a little bit more, because I think that there's something in that, it might be a really tricky thing to go full self-care. Like if you're like going, oh, but I don't even have needs. It's like, well, you do. Like you just got to uncover them, and go like, where would you say to people to start? If even just going, I can't even go to the gym, that's too much of a step for me. How would you get people to start prioritizing themselves?
I would encourage people to have a look at without judgment, because observing something is power, judging it is weakness. So often we can get, when we do some sort of inventory of our life, we can get really judgmental because we're like, we shouldn't be doing this and we should, and all this sort of stuff. So kind of have a look at your current way of doing things, because we're so often really fast to join a program or a plan or a diet and change everything. But a GPS needs a starting point and an ending point to plan a journey. So, what's your current lifestyle like? And without judgment. So if you're not doing any form of exercise, if you're just sitting at the computer all day, could you get up on the hour and do a couple of stretches, walk around your room? If you've got stairs, go up and down stairs, like do something really, really small and just see how that feels. Could you perhaps park the car a bit further in the car park? Like people always laugh at that, but incidental exercise really does add up, because often people will go and do an hour at the gym and then just not move the rest of the day, whereas, little movements when are you eating that's not serving you when you're not truly hungry? For a lot of people, with children, it is night because we put them to bed and we're just like, oh, it's our time. And then they talk to me and they go, oh, I should quit that. And then they want to do something productive. So they're like, I'm going to clean the kitchen, or I'm going to get ready for tomorrow, or I'm going to do the chores or something. And my thing would be, what is that nighttime eating giving you? What need is it filling? For a lot of people, it's a relaxation. How can you have that relaxation without food? So it's not about adding more in and being more productive. It's about getting your needs met. Like self-care isn't all baths and roses and massage oils. It's just kind of like, what is that need? How can that need be met? Because a lot of us have tied TV with eating because we feel guilty to just watch TV. Like I should be doing something, and eating is doing something. So it's like really being aware of where are the places that you're perhaps behaving in a way that isn't serving you, and what need are you filling with food in that moment, and how can that need be met in a healthier way. So it's not about going to the gym, it's not about eating less and drinking more water or going to bed earlier, but it's about like tidying up, for lack of a better way of putting it, the times where we're leaking energy by eating when something else could serve that need.
That's a really good way of looking at it. That idea that you don't have to replace it with productivity and keeping yourself busy activities. It's like, well, actually you could, I mean, in that particular instance, actually a bath would be a nice way to do it, or go to bed early, finally
Yes.
get that sleep that you so deeply crave, and get up earlier in the morning, where maybe the kids might be up early as well, but they might be a little bit less needy of you. Because I think the
Yes.
kids, like I find my kids particularly so full of energy and willing to play on their own in the morning. But as the day wears on and they get tired, it's a little bit harder to sort of step away.
Yes. And the other thing that I just want to highlight too, because I call the cycle I spoke about before the overgiving cycle,
Yeah.
eating is a form of receiving. Because when we've given all
Oh,
day, we've given to others, we've given to everything else. And, why do we sit down in the night and eat? Because a door goes forward and back, it pushes and pulls. So we can't always give, we have to receive in some way. And, eating is a form of receiving. It brings us back to our body, it brings us back to present. So a way to, prevent the nighttime overeating is, how can you give to yourself in little pockets during the day? Could you sit in the sun for 5 minutes? Could you have a cup of tea and truly enjoy it? Could you, read a blog post or listen to a podcast like this and be present with that activity rather than doom scrolling and comparing on Facebook, as so many of us do? Little
yeah.
pockets during a day, so at the evening you're not so overrun and overgiven that you turn to the overeating.
Oh, yeah. Okay, something just landed there. It's like giving, because you're constantly saying yes to everyone else. By the end of the day, you're like, okay, my turn now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting. Aren't we just like if you break it down, we're such simple creatures, but we try to overcomplicate ourselves. We're like, oh, it doesn't apply to me.
Yes. And it's funny, we have like active states and receptive states. And
Yeah.
active states, in our society are celebrated for doing,
Yeah.
for achieving, for productivity. But receptive states, it's almost like an embarrassment, like, oh, nobody celebrates that they had a nap. I actually do now. I like to have a day
Yeah.
nap. But, like when it's a balance. And when we are very active or doing all the time, and we go past the line for us, like for myself, for example, I often work early in the mornings because I have US, Canada clients, and I work in the evening because I have UK clients. So on those days, during the day, like while my kids are at school, that's my receptive time, when I watch the shows that I like, or I do a diamond dot, or I just, sit outside in the sun. Because I used to be like, why am I so tired? It's like, because I never have any time for receptive. I'm always on. Because the kids are at school, I should be doing something. So it's interesting to have a look at, how is your life might not be made up in the traditional 9 to 5 kind of cycle. And when are you giving yourself that downtime?
Yeah. Well, that's actually something that we've talked a lot about on my work from home guide, actually, which is about like when you do have a lifestyle where you're, like, we call it the flexible parent, which means you're probably staying at home, working part-time, being more available for the kids or whatever. And you have alternative working hours, but you try to recreate a 9 to 5 job at home. That's where it's like, yeah, so then you end up always working because you're like, I should be working in the day, but then you actually, like, I'm actually finding the same as you. I'm more productive in the night hours. Something comes alive in me at the moment. Sometimes it changes where I'll be more, like, depends on, like, whether it's summer or winter or whatever, but I'm finding, yeah, that's really a good point too. It's like, if you want to have a different life, You can't just keep recreating the same
I love
experience.
that
Yeah.
because it's so true. We have part of us which is yearning to do it our own way, and we're following that. But then part of us has the conditioning of this is the way it should be done, and
Yeah.
then so it's kind of like then we end up always on.
Yeah, exactly. And because there aren't, I mean, it's becoming a bit more common now, but there's not that much modeling around what it could look like. What is a different lifestyle? You know, it's so easy to go down the done path because you kind of got to make the other path up yourself. And that
Yes.
in itself can be energetically not overwhelming, but it can feel like you're constantly just pushing through until you start to make these new patterns, right? And when we're people pleasers, when we're always saying yes to others, it can be really hard to do something different because there's that fear of judgment.
Oh, there totally is, especially,
Yeah.
yeah, the people please. It's like, "Oh, you're not doing anything. Could you just pick up my dry cleaning, do this, get the groceries, da, da, da." And it's like,
Yeah.
"No." So, like, for me, I loved Untamed by Glennon Doyle,
Yeah.
and there's a section in there where she comes home and her wife Abby's, like, sitting on the couch watching TV, and Glennon's like, "But there's dishes in the sink." And I can't remember the exact wording, but Abby's kinda like, "Well, there's always gonna be dishes in the sink." And I was like, "That is so true,"
Yeah.
because I'm not saying live in squalor, but sometimes it's like, I can't rest until, and it's like, I'm sure all the mums can relate. Like, you've just finally got everything clean and you're having this moment of like Zen bliss, and then the kid spills spaghetti bolognese or somebody breaks something, and you're like, no. But it's
Yeah.
like, so having that receptive time to, unwind or relax or do whatever it is that you enjoy and not give in to the, I just got to clean the kitchen or, follow up that thing, because there's always the to do list can be never ending.
Oh, it really is never ending. Yeah. There's so much to be said about all of this, isn't there? Because like it is down to that being kind to yourself, but also valuing yourself, even when it feels hard.
Mm.
Unless you value yourself, then you're not going to get to that plan that you talk about in the overgiving cycle. Amazing. So before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share that kind of like rounds this out? Anything that I haven't asked you?
I guess it's kind of, it does come down to like setting boundaries, and there's a lot of focus and about setting boundaries with other people, but this is also, setting boundaries with self, which can be hard because after we've parented actual physical people all day, we kind of don't want to parent ourselves. We're just like the rebel or the inner teenager in us will come out and go, oh, I don't want to. But it's not about being perfect. It's about, awareness. And, when you do something that's so like, the thing I teach and I say to myself, that's suboptimal. So not like that was terrible or you're a terrible person or whatever. It's like, the behavior, doing the Macca's run or the slamming the entire packet of Tim Tams, like that was suboptimal, to separate it from you, because it can be like, I am a terrible person or I had a terrible day and I ate. Like, so separating yourself from the behavior and realizing that it's going to take time to learn this. Like, we haven't learnt this pattern of behavior overnight. We're not going to unwind it overnight. And also slip ups do happen. So I used to struggle, if I'm really honest, being a coach because I'm not perfect. And I'm like, if I waited till I was perfect, and I'm sure we're all the same, we never actually would do what we do. But it's knowing, so when the patterns of behavior come back up again, what is it a signal of? Like, where am I not listening to myself? Where am I not looking after myself? Or what is it that I'm avoiding, rather than like I've failed? Because we're all like a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time. So it's looking at, instead of like, I haven't learnt yet, what am I not seeing? What am I not addressing? Because in times of stress, and at the moment, globally and stuff, I'm not going to get into it, but it's quite a stressful time. We can revert to patterns of behavior that no longer serve us. So if you catch yourself out doing something that, isn't serving you, instead of beating yourself up, just like, that's suboptimal, and then straight back on to, taking your action.
Words matter. Such a really great way of describing that. And I love that. We're all masterpieces and works in progress at the same time. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your amazing wisdom with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been great. So I'm going to have the show notes. In the show notes, there'll be a link to all of Suzanne's work, including the link to people can download the first 2 chapters of your book for free at your
Yes.
website.
So if you're on a weight journey, or you've had a weight journey and you're obsessed with before and after stories, mine is one like no other. I used to get really upset that they were always like Disney princess, like before, oh, life's terrible, and then life's amazing, and then off into the sunset. So my memoir is called The Beginning is Shit. And it's an unapologetic weight loss memoir, and it talks about me losing 43 kilos and regaining it all, losing 60 kilos and regaining it all, and many attempts in between until I finally released the 78 kilograms. So it's a bit of a up and down, not just the before and after kind of thing. So it's probably unlike anything that you've read before.
Oh, yes, I can't wait to read my copy in full. Oh, thank you so much. Amazing.
Thank you.
That's it for another episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you'd like to connect further, the show notes from today's episode, including all the social links and free resources, are over on my website, howtoliveslow.com/podcast. Have a beautiful week ahead, and I'll speak with you again soon.